Hello, everybody. We're going to see how this works here. And next button, that's excellent. Does anybody recognize this plant? Anybody have this in their backyard? It is the nastiest thing in the world to find in your backyard. It is a Japanese knotweed. It grows rhizomatically. It spreads. When they found it at the 2012 Olympics, they had to dig down 30 feet and out 30 feet just to make sure it was gone. It's incredibly resilient. It's incredibly aggressive. And it kind of maps out itself, much like stories and much like the way that people interact online. And I'm going to use that as a metaphor. We're going to come back to it here in a minute. And we're going to make a little bit of a detour to give a little bit of context. We're going to start back with Socrates. I wasn't here for 1967. I had 7 years of gap there. So I'm going to go back a little further and see if I can't pull that together. In the Phaedro, Socrates supposedly said that the thing that he hated about writing is that it killed the argument. The argument could no longer defend itself. Once it was written down and made concrete, it was over. Right? And there's something about that. There's something about the beauty of an oral culture is that it allows everybody to engage in a discussion. It allows that discussion to be ongoing. And I think that message is a really important one for us to think when we look out to the 150th anniversary and that ability of us to connect online and use those oral practices. And I don't think of the digital that way, but it allows us to connect directly. If we go forward, let's say 1,500 years, this is my daughter, you can all say, "Aw." That's good, thank you, thank you. When you go forward about 1,500 years and you look into the classroom, you still have the authority of the oral. We're looking back to, church fathers and philosophers. We still have the people there, but we have an authority. We have a book, we have something that's being taught, and the only way you're getting that out of the classroom is to memorize it, commit it to memory, and commit the word to memory, right? But that authority still lies in people. When you go forward another 500 years from there, this is Gutenberg's printing press, all of a sudden the authority for the conversation, the place of the conversation, lives with the publisher. And you have a convener in a publisher who gets to decide how the conversation moves forward. So it's no longer a couple of individuals we can identify. I come from the learning field. When you look at the textbook, it's a totally blind person. It's a step-by-step process. We've got knowledge there we're trying to give to somebody, but the conversation is getting further and further away from people. What's happened with the internet is all of a sudden there's lots of people who are getting part of that conversation, right? We have everybody who all of a sudden can go in and join that conversation and participate. But what we haven't done yet is we haven't found really good ways to help structure that conversation. So when we look in this room right now, there's not a single person yelling at me. There's not a single person raising their hand and shouting and waving stuff around. And if we went to the internet with that same conversation, we wouldn't expect the same level of politeness. So some degree, we need to find ways to structure our conversations so we can take advantage of the fact that everybody can sit in front of their computer and argue with somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning, but still have that conversation be a productive one. In 2008, does anybody recognize this word? Anybody? Show of hands. There's my mother-in-law. She just raised her hand. That's good. This is a term that I coined in 2008 when we were looking at some of the work that we were doing. We had a course that 2 friends of mine had started, and we opened it up to the internet, and 2,300 people showed up. We went, what are we going to do with 2,300 people, right? But what happened there, and the reason why I called it that, is that we had started a conversation without realizing it, and a whole bunch of people, some of whom we knew and some of whom we didn't, all showed up to be part of that discussion. And we had a really good discussion. There are some people who, had different opinions about things, but we knew who they were. We were able to address them directly. And that MOOC became a place where we could have a really interesting discussion. I'm just going to walk through that a little bit, just to make sure everybody's on, because I got about half the hands there. It's massive in the sense that, yes, it's huge, yes, it's the internet, but it also means that there are people you wouldn't normally interact with who are part of that discussion. There are people invited who you didn't personally invite, right? It allows for that potential of the unexpected. And when you get things huge on the internet, that's one of the advantages you have. This one, openness, is maybe the critical part of this. Open not only in terms of things being free and accessible, but open in the sense that transparency. This is who I am, this is what I'm doing. When we look at the internet now, 95% of the problems we have is where people are hiding who they are. That openness is critical. It's online, not only in the sense, obviously it's online, we're talking about the internet, but those connections can evolve. We can find out how people are connected. We can find new people. There's a lot of information there that we can use to figure things out. And it's a course, and I think when we look out to 2017 and we look at trying to structure a conversation so everybody can participate, this is critical. We need to have some kind of structure that people can work within so it doesn't end up being just a national discussion with a comment thread. How many people love the comment threads on public discussion right now? Oh, come on. I got 2 hands in the background. I know who you guys are now. So once you bring in the comments, once we have that, we all have this idea about what that looks like. But it doesn't need to be that way. Those rhizomes are aggressive, they're chaotic, they're resilient, they're difficult to contain. They map themselves. They do, they go all over the place. But we've learned over the years, in the different generations, in the different ways we've had technologies, the ways that we've been able to interact with them, we've learned how to work together with them. We've learned how to share them. We've learned how to store them and keep them when that was super precious. And we've learned how, like Pestalozzi with the textbook in 1795, how to build a textbook to teach a whole country how to read, right, in Switzerland. We can do those things as long as we take all the things we've learned and the things we are and apply them to this internet thing, right? Build an ecology for that discussion to contain those rhizomes, not force them, not make them the thing, not make one thing. Everybody has talked about how multicultural this country is, and it is. But we need to be able to make a safe place where people can declare who they are, where they can make their own map. They make their own map for that discussion, make their own place in it, so we can have many voices working together instead of lone voices shouting at each other, which is mostly the discourse that we have now. So I guess my message here is that we can start this kind of discussion. If we get together, we can change the narrative of the public discourse. But what's needed is all the people who didn't lift their hands up, who said, I don't like the way that discussion is going online, they all need to participate. Because the weight of the common sense, the weight of the people who see a Canadian way of interacting, all need to engage in that discussion. And we'll weigh out those people who are just going in to shout at people at 2 o'clock in the morning in front of their computer. Thank you.
What have you found are the best ways to engage someone who is hesitant or not computer savvy? There'll be a few of those come 2017.
I teach 24 of them tonight at 6 o'clock. It's just about confidence. It's like anything else. What I tend to tell people is that 97% of what you need to interact on the internet, you already have. You know how to interact with people, you know how to be polite, you know how to communicate, you know how to connect, you know what happens when you sit at a table and you talk to people. All you need to realize is that all you're doing is bridging that to this other space. I think people think that there are these mythical skills that they need to be able to do it. But once you find something interesting, like say, I hid my pictures of my kids online for my mother to find, once you find that one thing to keep people in with, then they can realize and slowly bridge their existing literacies into the internet.
That's Dave Cormier, folks. Thank you, Dave.